Hey, welcome to another episode of Liberty on Caffeine. It is Saturday, the 24th of October. Beautiful day out today. It started early for me. My good friend Tom Herron was hosting the morning program. It's Saturday morning coffee on WTKN Talk 94.5. He did a great job. It was 2 hours long, but it was kind of like the old Liberty on Caffeine panel reunion this morning. I called in. Ed Carey called in. We had just a great time, and of course, Chad got fired up and also got in on the action. So it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. If you have a chance to tune in and watch that. Today's show, my partner in crime, Jeff, should be coming in shortly. He's not quite up on the screen yet, but today's show we're going to be talking about intolerance. It's something that has been, it's been prevalent in today's society and dialogue. It goes by several different names. Ending hate speech to cancel culture, but it's just intolerance. And when we talk about intolerance, we're talking about the unwillingness to accept views, beliefs, or behaviors that differ from one's own. And when we talk about behaviors, we're saying as long as the behavior does not physically harm someone, then that's not just intolerance. That's just something that we shouldn't put up with, period. I've got to stop the ums and ahs. I used to have that very well regulated with me when I did radio regularly when I was in my 20s at University of Wisconsin in Madison. I don't know if, there we go again, if I'll be able to get back into the swing, get back into my radio cadence, so to speak. I could blame it on a lot of things. Being a Midwesterner, we love to do our ahs. Well, getting back to our topic, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about some quotes we have, like Joseph Fort Newton said, "Men who built too many walls and not enough bridges." Ayaan Hirsi Ali had, "Tolerance of intolerance is cowardice." Well, I guess that's why we're looking at this topic today, because we are not confronting intolerance. The man who is most aggressive in teaching tolerance is most intolerant of all. He wants a world full of people too timid and ashamed to really disagree with anything. That's from Chris Jami in Kilsasaphy. I haven't read Kilsasaphy. I'm not really that familiar with it. Another one from Aberjani, from The River of Winged Dreams, is, "On face battered back, calm's eyes etch prayers that cool a nation's hot rage." I thought that I just had to grab that quote because it just seems so poetic and meaningful. I mean, I might even make a T-shirt with that phrase. "On faith's battered calm eyes etched prayers that cool a nation's hot rage." And then lastly, we've got Clifford D. Simak from Time is the Simplest Thing. "The pendulum that swung too excuse me, the pendulum that swung too far, as always, now was swinging back. The horror of intolerance has been loosed upon the land." And again, we're seeing, I guess what he's talking about is we're seeing the pendulum swinging back in one fashion or another, but I don't believe in the left-right dichotomy as it's described right now. That's just not something that I really buy into, but so be it. Also, I'm going to be running a few little clips from interviews that I did earlier. One, there it goes, the again. That's going to kill me. I swear it. The first one is from a new friend of mine, Jim Clay. in Kansas City, Missouri. He did an interesting thing, and I saw it on Facebook, and I just had to hear from the man. First off, he's a big husky guy, truck driver, and a big churchgoer. Is very involved in his church, and he went out and he was just kind of observing some things. And so he went out and he had a Trump hat, and he went out and he bought a Biden hat, a very sparkly one. You'll see in the interview. And he just wanted to see what the reactions were. Now, again, this is not a scientific social experiment by any ways, means, or anything else. This is just one man's personal observations. So I will put in that caveat. So don't call in or text me about the validity or the science behind it. But I just found it was very interesting, his take on the whole thing. And while we're waiting for Jeff, we're going to go ahead and roll this interview. And just give me a moment. We're going to see if we can get to it. And here we go. Technology is wonderful.
All right.
You're okay. Well, I hope people enjoyed that little interview and that clip. Hey, Jeff, how are you doing today? Are we able to? Oh, I don't know if I've got a dog squealing and I've got a frozen screen with you. I don't know if I've got a problem. Jeff, are you able to get us? We're still waiting on Jeff to be able to get through. Let me see. He's got occasional garbled noises, getting noises from me. That other noise you hear is my dog. Marie's not in, so she is trying to get in on the action. He wasn't able to get the recorded interview. Gosh, I don't know. He's going to try to log in again and see if we have that coming in. But yeah, it was a very interesting conversation, as you could well see from Jim Clay. It was very enjoyable. I learned a lot from him, and I was also able to talk to another fellow. He's on the very right side. He's got a new organization that he's putting together. He's kind of a controversial fellow. He's in Ringgold, Georgia. And the other thing I wanted to do is apologize to my good friend Jim Clay. He's from Kansas City, Kansas, not Kansas City, Missouri, as I noted. Hey, Jeff, how are you doing? I think we got the technical difficulties over with.
I certainly hope so. We'll have to see how it goes.
Okay, real good. Well, you know, I thought it was just you were canceling me. You were just being intolerant. So,
well, that's one of the few few finer qualities I possess. So.
Well, I don't know if you had a chance to catch any of the interview I had with Jim Clay. He was the fellow that did that social experiment over in Kansas City, Kansas, with the two hats and going out and talking to people. And his it really, the point wasn't that he found it more intolerant on one side than the other, although that does seem to be a thread that's going through this a little bit. But you and I have discussed that there's intolerance on both sides, especially the closer you get to the extreme ends. When you get to the far left and you get to the far right, there seems to be some intolerance. And why don't you explain a little bit more in your position on that?
Well, the way I see it is that the supposedly tolerant left is extremely intolerant toward what is considered normal by society. Sexual deviant behavior has never been accepted as normal within our society, and yet they want to push for acceptance of the deviant behavior. You're free to live how you choose so long as you don't harm others. You're more than free to participate in the whatever sexual preference you choose, but that doesn't give you the right to force society to accept it as normal. And people who will not accept it as normal aren't necessarily homophobic. They just happen to believe that, and I think it's been proven throughout history that accepting certain beliefs into society is damaging for society. So they're more than free to live how they choose, but they're not free to tell others that they must accept it as being normal.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, those are great points. We've found that shutting down. Pardon?
I'm sorry, I wanted to hit the opposite side, the conservatives and Republicans as well, practice intolerance by attempting to. It's the same thing from a different viewpoint. They want to force their beliefs on people. They want the government to legislate morality, and so they're, of course, homosexuality is a sin. If you're a homosexual, then you're a sinner. You're not worthy. Blah blah blah. No civil unions for homosexual. So it's. And I don't necessarily think that it's the extremes on either side. I just think that both sides want to have their beliefs enshrined in law and force everybody else to believe as they do.
Yeah, it's very well put. Very well put. What are some examples that you've seen firsthand of the intolerance in society? Cancel culture is, I think, an exercise in intolerance. However, we had the discussion that if you are an owner of something, you do have the right to exercise your, I guess you could say, your intolerance. If I have a business and I don't like the way somebody is dressed or inappropriately dressed, or what they're voicing in my business or something, I have the right to kick them out. And we were even talking about social media.
Yeah. Well, intolerance itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that every society and every individual has a philosophy they follow, and that as such, that we all have things that are intolerable to us. Just as an easy example is that you don't harm others or their property, and that's a very basic law that needs to be part of any society before it can be successful. And so we don't tolerate crimes against other people or their property. Intolerance itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just like a gun. It's how it's applied. If you want to use it to do harm, then that can be the case. But if you want to use it to set rules that societies must follow, I mean, everybody is intolerant of something. Everybody has a philosophy. The only question is how it's applied and what its purpose is.
True, true. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be right back. And I have got my little dog that is squealing here on the side, and we're going to be coming back and talking a bit more about intolerance.
Braxton was diagnosed with choroid plexus carcinoma, a brain tumor. St. Jude is helping us put away our fears. We have an amazing team that fights for the best outcome for Braxton. He has the best chance here. I don't have to worry that how much is that bag of fluid going to cost me? Can I afford it to save my child's life? The donations, they're paying for me to live every day with my son, be stress-free, and enjoy every day with him. I wish there was a word bigger than thank you, more close to the heart, because thank you's not enough. They've given me hope. They've given me my son.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I just want to apologize to everybody. My little dog Ava is just having a field day trying to get her voices heard. I'm getting a little intolerant of that. Yeah. Anyway, we're going through, and we were talking about, we're going to go through and talk about examples of intolerance, and we were, especially I wanted to touch on a subject that we had talked about earlier, and that was like YouTube and the Twitter, all these
Facebook, Twitter, social
media.
media.
Yeah. And we were explaining to or trying to get across to a few people. I know I was on from a discussion that you and I had held earlier, a position on that these are private companies and they do have a right. I guess there is a little bit of discussion how much legal protection they get from exercising those rights, but they do have a right to be able to control content. Go ahead and explain a little bit about how we had that conversation and your take on, it's their business and they can protect themselves by controlling content.
Well, it's just like if I have a business and I put up a cork board for people to make local announcements, advertise their business, et cetera, and someone puts content up there that I disagree with or that it could actually harm my business, then I'm going to take it down. I offer you this place for free inside of my business, but it's still my property. And on my property rights supersede yours. I understand that Facebook receives some sort of special protection from the government against laws. They're not actually publishing anything. They're basically just giving you a place that you can put on what you want. And it is a for-profit company. They do have advertisers, and the advertisers have standards. They won't allow their advertising to go on particular videos that they find offensive or harmful to their own business. So yeah, you can't come stick a yard sign in my yard that says "Kill Jews." But I'm going to come take it down. Now, if Facebook has no control, somebody can get on there and put up posts "Kill Jews," and Facebook can't do anything about it. It all comes down to property rights, and I believe that they, as an individual business, have the right to regulate the content on their site. And I believe that the First Amendment limits government, not people. So the government is limited in scope as to what they can actually do to Facebook for censoring the content. And I don't think they should even have the right to do that.
Do they have the responsibility to make sure that it's equitable? And here's an example I'm going to say. they will take down, say for instance, they take down the message from a Nazi who's screaming at the video, kill Jews, but then they leave up the video from the Muslim yelling, kill Jews.
Correct.
Now, that inequity, is that any type of responsibility of the government to step in and say, look, you got to have the rules the same for both edge? Again, because they're a private business. They get to decide?
They get to decide. Now, the consequences of their actions are theirs as well. What will happen eventually, and has happened with just about everything else in computers and will continue to occur, is that they will lose their customer base. People will find another platform where their voices aren't silenced, that agree more with their belief systems, or that allows more open communication. And Facebook is cutting its own throat. Microsoft was the biggest operating system manufacturer in the world and had 90-something%, over 95% of the business at one time. Apple had nothing. Apple managed a little comeback, got 10 to 15% of the market share, managed to survive, got into the phone business, destroyed Microsoft. I mean, you can't buy a Microsoft-based cell phone these days. So, and part of the reason that Microsoft was unsuccessful, not only was their product not as good as the others, but it's also because they're known as the world's largest spyware program. So, governments in Europe and other countries were one of the first to drop Windows as an operating system because of concerns over security. So Facebook will work themselves into a hole, and they will not be able to. Facebook will work themselves into a corner by censoring, and somebody else is going to come along and replace them. That's how.
And you and I are geeky enough. We can do, and we will do, a whole show on Windows, Linux, and iOS. I mean, because this to me is always fantastic stuff. To go into the history, to go into the philosophies of the companies and how they're intermeshed and how they do war with each other. I think it's fantastic. And we could even talk about the old wars going on with just the internet and how it went through with the birth. But transitioning back to our thing, I think one of the things we're kind of accidentally stumbling upon and is really good is the biggest cure for intolerance is a free market, a truly free market. I'm not talking about a corporatist market, but a truly free market is, like you said, they get punished for what the buying group or what society votes on with their dollars, be it the companies that are going to invest in advertising or the buyers that are going to purchase the products and services offered by the companies. So,
well, again, the free market works just like guns and intolerance, is that it could be used to benefit or to harm. If the culture that's accepted by society is one of intolerance, then it's going to be displayed through the success of businesses that follow that same model. You're still, in the end, it all comes down to morality and to a sense of right and wrong. Do I think that homosexuality is wrong? Yes. Do I think it's wrong to limit a homosexual's ability to join in a civil union? Yes. Because in this society, whether I agree with it or not, I want to be free to believe how I want to believe. And therefore, I can't limit other people from their own beliefs as well. If a man wants to join with another man, I allow it because I want to be able to practice my Christianity without somebody coming and taking away those rights as well.
That's right. That's right. Well, on that, I do want to start segueing into another interview that I had a chance, and then you get to finish the cigarette too. I'm going to have the interview.
I'm gonna do that anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Interview I had with a fella in Ringgold, Georgia. He is often controversial. That's been out there. His Chester Doles. He's someone who started a new group that's out there, he talks about nationalism, and I want to warn people, I don't think he's talking about nationalism as far as putting a nation in front or above a person, as like the National Socialists did or the Nazis.
Right.
Although I'm sure because of his past, people will equate that to it. I think he's talking more along the lines of patriotism and being able to honor the flag and the things that are American. But again, it'll have to come from his mouth and let him explain it. But here is a little bit from Chester Doles, and then we're going to do some commentary after I run this this video with him. Donna. Stop. Stop it. I can't have you doing that all the time, okay?
Yeah, I still can't hear a word of the interview.
Sorry about that. I don't know. It seems like it's broadcasting on Facebook.
Yeah, but I can't go to Facebook and be in here. So that's okay.
I get that.
I mean, I get my PC working, which I've been lazy about, and it'll be more convenient. So I have two devices.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to run the full interview at a later time, but that's just a little flavor of Chester Doles' colorful, I mean, beyond colorful kind of guy. He is, he's had a colorful past, to say the least. And, but he was going on and explaining a little bit about some of the things that he experienced, even the people that he was campaigning for. One lady, and I'll have this in the full when I run the full interview. She had him escorted out of her rally because he was, quote, toxic. And yet he has pictures where they were, standing up, holding banners together and everything else. But once she got her base created, she turned against some of her base in order because she knew that she was pretty much a shoo-in for election. And this was kind of a shock to him. And it is interesting. Again, we're going to be running the full interview on porcupinepundit.com, which, by the way, I've been working on the website, got a few of the glitches, but we've got the core of it going up right now. And just to do a little business of our own, you people can see the banner about going through and getting to our Patreon, but you can also find out that that you can hear the what do I want to say? Trying to do two or three things here at the same time. Well, getting back on track. I'm going to be running the thing, but we can have people that give to Patreon. We also have other ways for them to give. We also have a swag site. It's called Freedom Swag, so you can get T-shirts and things like that. And when I get a good picture of you, we'll put your picture on a mug, Jeff, and then that'll be a top seller.
I'm not photogenic, so that's not going to happen. Anyway,
I don't know. The ladies out there would disagree.
I did want to mention that people who are interested in learning more about intolerance and liberty could read Lysander Spooner's Vices Are Not Crimes. It's a pamphlet that was created by him. He's considered the last great philosopher from the age of reason. He was an abolitionist, a Christian, and an anarchist. So when you read, he will take it to extremes.
Yeah,
being an anarchist, but the basics are all covered in there as to why you should not try to legislate morality.
Well, it's great because Lysander Spooner is going to be one of the personalities we're going to explore in the audio series we've got for Liberty on Caffeine podcast from the libertarian philosophers or liberty-minded philosophers that'll go through. Currently, up on the podcast, we do have the introduction and the first episode, which is about Leonard Peikoff. So I invite people to just go to your favorite podcast site and start listening to some of those. I'm probably going to have Jeff help me with those a little bit later on too. But he's been busy, but we're going to be using the heck out of it for while he's here as my cohort and co-host. Yeah, I finally got the dog to calm down, so that's a lot better too. So just right now, we're going to run another little short PSA and come back and discuss a little bit more on intolerance, and then we're going to talk about next week's show. So let me run here, and I know I have it here somewhere. This is the fun with having to be the producer and the host on here. Here we go.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. Be the someone who gives their time. Be the someone who lends an ear. Be the someone who takes a step. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN, asking you to join the fight against sexual violence and volunteer in your community. Log on to rain.org, that's RAINN.org, to learn how you can be the someone.
This message brought to you by the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network and this station.
Thank goodness I've got these little PSA breaks, because otherwise I would really be all over the board with these things. But with intolerance today, I think we've had a chance to look at both intolerance from all spectrums that we have in society, from the right, the left, the outside. We've had a chance to explore some of the experimentation and things that people are doing on the outside of us that are here, both in Ringgold, Georgia, and on out to Kansas City, Kansas. We've been able to explore so many of these things. I'm hoping that people will comment and let us know. I do have Tom Heron said, just arrived now, no sound either, unaware of what you've been discussing, will weigh in if it makes sense. Hello, Hammer.
You're waiting for us to make sense, then we may never hear from you again. Yeah, that could
Jim
be a while.
Jim Clay says, great show, sir. So it was because he was on. That's the only reason.
I also wanted to mention that if you feel like donating to the program, it will help us expand what we offer. I would like to be able to do things in the field, locally and in the state level, as well as federally eventually. And it can help. Your contributions will help provide the equipment that's necessary to expand as well.
Yeah, because we've been trying to, we're waiting for all this other stuff to go so we can do more studio work. And we also want to do, and we're going to try to be doing a little bit more taping outside and letting people see, man on the street stuff and some things that are remote. As you can tell, I've been trying to get some interviews that are outside of the area so we can talk to all the different personalities and get input from all the liberty-minded people throughout this country. So next week, Jeff and I are going to be putting our heads together and thinking about what we're going to be discussing. And quite frankly, we're going to be right up against the election. I don't know if that's going to make any real difference because of early voting. We were talking on the Saturday morning coffee show with Tom Heron about the early morning voting, and I'm just wondering what the impact of it, if those early voters never would have been influenced by any new information that would be coming out after they influence or after they've made the vote or not. It's interesting.
You kind of have to say that if they're voting now, they've already made up their minds. There's usually nothing that's going to break in the next few days that's really going to have an impact on an individual's decision. So I think the earlier voters were already planned on voting a specific way, and nothing was going to change their mind anyway, or they would have been waiting. If I'm unsure, I'm not going to vote.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
And honestly, I may not vote in this election at all because of the choices we have seem to be between a closet socialist and outspoken socialists. So where do we go?
Well, I have been, and some people aren't even very happy with the third party candidates that are out there, with one stance or another that they have. The never Trumpers or the never Bidens, but I don't want people to be disenfranchised. But that's what we're talking about, is disenfranchisement. But I encourage them to look at the Libertarian Party, of course, biased by me, and the Green Party always puts in very strong candidates. The Independent Party, their candidates kind of wishy-washy this year. I don't know much about the Constitutionalist candidate. I haven't heard much splash from them. But it's interesting. We're just another note that came across my desk earlier today is the hopes that the Libertarians are to get the 5%. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but if they get 5% of the popular vote, any third party gets 5% of the popular vote, then they will be just like the major parties in being able to get public funds for their campaigning.
Yes.
I don't, but a lot of Americans don't realize that, and the Libertarians are the only party that's been able to even be knocking on that threshold. They were at 3.8% in 2016, I believe.
What you have, and I think we discussed this last week, the two private parties controlling the whose candidates, another private company controlling the debates, and the requirements keep changing anytime that a third party candidate even comes close to meeting them or meets them.
Yeah.
A lot of the changes that have occurred as of late were due to Ron Paul having the success that he had in running as a Republican. The Republican Party, the private company, was concerned that they may actually lose control to a liberty-minded individual.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore he was not going to win no matter what. The news outlets were against him, even his own party was against him. Now, the reason that I choose to be a libertarian is because it most closely associates with the beliefs of the founding fathers of the country. It most closely associates with the philosophy from the age of reason. And as you can see, that as we've moved away from the founding principles, that our quality of life has decreased. Our liberties have decreased. Our incomes have decreased. And so to go back to those founding principles would be a benefit for every individual in the country. That's why I go libertarian. I did support Trump last term. I did vote for him. What he did for the first 3.5 years was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Reduction in reducing the size of government, reducing income taxes, using tariffs to protect jobs and industries, were all founding principles and things that made this country successful. But then in the last 6 months, taken all of that and thrown it out the window and replaced it with nothing but socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Rent reform, mortgage reform, looking at tuition reform, looking at national health care, universal basic income. Did I already mention tuition? You can go, the list could go on and on. And even the choices made by the states. This governor's choice as to whether he wants to lock his state down or not. But it's the federal government that's financing the lockdown and repaying the lost revenues to the state. While the state shut down, they're losing revenues. The federal government's going to give them money. It's still our tax money. It's still coming straight from. So all we're doing is giving them our money so that they can finance a lockdown. I think we'll go back to Lysander Spooner. He said that if the government can take your money, then all of your other rights go with it. Because with your money, they'll hire soldiers to stand over you, and if you disobey, they'll kill you. And that's basically what we have right now, and what we need to move away from. So if you want to have a good chance at actual liberty, free market, live how you choose, whether you choose to be a Christian, or you choose to be anything else that you want to be. If you want to have that freedom, then you need to look at the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
None of the others, all the others are intolerable of the founding principles of the country.
True. Well, we did have a comment. Joe Keller was wondering if Nader was close to the 5%. He actually was closer. He was a little under 2% from my research, from the popular vote, along with, who's that fellow from, he ran as an independent, he had that software outfit down in Texas. Doggone it!
Oh,
Talk about a mind fart. I can't recall who it is I'm talking about, but he made a very strong case for.
Sorry, the spyware company, wasn't that the one you're talking about?
No, it was actually a software company. I think he broke off. He was with Texas Instruments, and then he broke off and had his own company. Man alive, I can't believe I can't think of it. But he was famous for having his charts, and he'd always have charts, along with his political talk. Shoot, I think he ran as a Republican at one point, and then he went as an independent. I'm
talking about Perot, are you?
Ross Perot. There we go.
That's what you were talking about. Yeah. And poor Perot. Now here's the thing about him. The reason he lost was because everybody thought he was paranoid, because he thought someone was following his children and watching after his family. And then a couple of decades later, you've got the FBI spying on the nominee the nominee for president on the Republican Party during a campaign. So I don't believe Ross Perot was quite as insane as the media painted him.
Paranoid. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And, if you want to look at how concerned and how scared these other two parties are of having some other party get involved, when or even a different philosophy being involved inside their own party, when here we go. Now I can't think of the name. Ron Paul ran. Mm-hmm. He won the Iowa straw poll.
Yeah.
And what they did was list, instead of first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, even Fox News listed fifth, fourth, third, second, first. When he finished second, third, or fourth in any of the other straw polls, which he did on a regular basis, they started omitting his name completely. They would go from first to third to fourth to fifth.
Yeah.
So you can forget restoring the existing parties to their former greatness, because there's two private companies who aren't concerned about what they used to do for people.
That's true.
You've got to look somewhere else these days.
That's true. All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap up the end of the show. I want to thank you again, Jeff, the constitutional hammer Harper, for co-hosting today. If anybody wants to catch any of our past shows, you can go to our YouTube channel at Porcupine Pundit. We also will start putting up some of the past shows and so on links in our webpage at porcupinepundit.com. We are still in the midst of working on it. You'll see that our front page is pretty much complete with a couple missing links, but the other pages are still going to have to be populated. But anyway, I want to thank everybody. Join us again next week, Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for Liberty on Caffeine. Take care, Jeff.
Thank you.